Hello, parents, caregivers, and providers. Welcome to Parenting Stuff I Wish I Knew Sooner and Want You to Know Now. I'm your host, Erica Jasper, founder of the Center for Confident Parenting and a mom who seems to learn everything I need to know the hard way. And today I'm joined by Lisa Eller, mom to 3 grown children, as well as a certified teacher, parenting coach with over 25 years of experience with children and families. She has taught children of all ages as well as informative classes for new parents. Lisa, welcome, and thank you for making some time to join me.
Thank you, Erica. Thanks for having me.
Yes, certainly. So, first question, since you're a certified teacher and you're a parenting coach, momming has been super easy for you, right?
Absolutely. Never any surprises, nothing shocking. I just followed the manual like the whole time.
Oh my gosh,
And
where did you get that?
we all are in the same boat, right? We all join parenting, not knowing what's ahead of us and learning as we go.
Absolutely. I kind of wish there was a manual. I don't know. I have mixed feelings about that. I'm not big on consulting a manual in the first place. I've been known to just try to put stuff together and look at the manual later. But it certainly would be helpful in certain instances. And it's good to hear that, even if it's what you're the expert in, doesn't necessarily make it any easier when it's your kiddos. And I think what's so hard about that is you're just so invested. It's so personal. You're so emotional. Um, so yeah, we're all in a similar boat.
So true.
What was there something that was super challenging? Like when you look back on your parenting, this was not a question I prepped you for. So apologies. What were the challenges that you thought were the hardest ones as you were raising your own kids?
Two things just jump out at me. One is one that you cover so professionally and so well, which is potty training.
Mm,
Potty training is such a challenge because there really is no control. They're in control. The children are in control of their own bodies and what they're going to do with those bodies. And so it's challenging to teach that. I
mhm.
had a couple of tricks up my sleeve that worked very well. And so that was good, but that was really challenging. And then I would say the next really challenging, really super challenging thing for me was teaching them all how to drive. And I know that's a huge
Oh
leap
my
from
goodness.
like 2 or 3 to 16. But my gosh, it just terrified me because I recognized that I was putting them behind a weapon. And I feared for their safety and I feared for the safety around them, of people around them. So it was hard as a parent to put them behind the wheel and send them off on their way. And teaching them was really challenging. I thought.
Yeah. Awesome. Such a unique perspective. Usually the people I'm interviewing have, still have young children underfoot. So it is on my radar. My son is turning 14, so it's a little on my radar, but I'm pretending
Mm-hmm.
it's much further than it actually is because I'm terrified of that too.
Well, you know what's really funny, actually? I remember the day my son got his license, and we went back home, and then he said, "I'm going to go meet my friends out," and he got in the car and drove away. And in that moment, had an instant flashback to the day I dropped him off at kindergarten, and he said, "Goodbye, Mom.
Oh,
I know how to go." And he just walked down the hallway away from me, and there he was driving down the road, and it was a flashback of that such a similar experience, and sending
yeah,
them
I'm not
off into the
ready.
world. And yeah,
I'm currently coping with the fact that he has overtaken me in height, which I knew was coming because for everyone that can't see me in real life, I'm not even 5 feet. So I knew eventually he would overtake me and it would probably be around age 12 or 13.
there
But
you
yeah,
go.
I have to fully process that and sit with it before I can think about the driving thing.
Yeah, all
But
three of mine are taller than me.
it's interesting, like you said, it kind of bookended. The potty training thing was really hard, and looking back, you feel like you coasted, and then the driving thing was the next hard thing. So you
Yeah.
had some good years in there, some
It's true. It's true.
some good easy years. That's awesome. So my next question is obviously parenting and just family life in general has changed a lot probably from when you first had your kiddos. So, having been on both the parent side of it and then now the parent coach side of it, what changes have you observed, in these past 25 years that you've been in this field in terms of the challenges and the stressors that parents, kids, families are facing each day? It's got to be a little different now. And I'm sure some of it's the same.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. I mean, I think there are the similarities that go from generation to generation to generation: sex, drugs, alcohol. We're all worried about those things, so those things are going to be the same no matter where you are in time. I think the thing that I've seen really change and really be a huge challenge for parents is social media. And my kids were kind of on the front end of that. So they got phones when they were in 7th grade. And from that point on, they were, connected to phones and to all of the things that they could get their hands on through their phones. I think that it exposes them to a lot of negative resources. I mean, of course, we all agree that social media and the internet really opens up our world and really gives us an opportunity to learn and explore things that we absolutely didn't have our hands on years back. But the negative exposure, I think, is really challenging. And social media specifically paints a picture, a false picture, I think, that everyone's lives are perfect. And that's just not the case, right? We all know that's not reality. But when you're young and you're impressionable and you see, well, they have a perfect family and they have a perfect family and they have a perfect relationship with their siblings and, all these different things, you start to think, I think when you're young and impressionable, that you are the odd man out and that you don't have a perfect life and everybody else does. And I think that can be anxiety inducing, as well as creates depression. And I've seen a lot more children with anxiety and depression recently than I have ever seen before. And
Mhm.
I think social media is a huge contributing factor.
Absolutely. And to add to that, I know personally,
Excuse
but
me.
also from the parents I talk to, just a lot of battles over tech, like how much screen time is too, playing video games,
Mm-hmm.
hopping back on the phone, watching TV, getting on the computer. Um, Obviously, the parents have maybe different ideas on how much time is too much than a kid may. And so I'm sure that's something that we aren't just coping with. Everybody's
Well,
coping
yeah,
with.
and every parent has a different opinion on that. So I mean, I even remember back when my kids were younger, which was a long time ago. Well, so and so's mom lets them keep their phone in their room, 24/7. Well, I didn't do that. They had to bring their phones out at night. They went to a general area where everybody charged their phones overnight, and then they got them again in the morning. And that was because I didn't want them up at 2 o'clock in the morning
Uh,
talking to friends or surfing the web or whatever,
yeah.
or playing games. That they were doing that as well. And so those were my guidelines, but I had to, as we do as parents all the time, compete with the rules and regulations in all of their friends' homes as well. And
Mhm.
so I think that's probably gotten much worse over the past 20 years, where it is such a central focus of our lives, our phones and our computers, and all the different ways we are connecting through social media. How do you rein that in? How do you put boundaries on that and limit that, and help them recognize that just because they saw it online doesn't mean it's actually true?
Mhm.
That's a really hard concept for them to understand. Well, I read this, and so this is true. You saw it on Twitter. That doesn't mean it's true. Somebody put it on Twitter. That doesn't mean that they're an expert or that they really know what they're talking about. And so
Right.
that's a real challenge.
Yeah. So, in addition to that, what type of topics, issues are you typically helping families tackle in your coaching? Just so we know we're not alone.
Yeah, there you go. I would say that one of the my main area, I have two main areas of focus. So the one area of focus is educational awareness, educational structure within the home. And having an education background, it gives me a little bit of an advantage to a parent who might not. And so I help both the parents and the students with creating good study skills, time management, lifelong skills that not only are going to benefit them throughout their educational life, but actually in their careers as well. When you think about it long term, really important that we have the ability to manage our time well and prioritize, what needs to be done right now and what doesn't need to be done for another 2 weeks or whatever. So that's a real focus for me, helping students prepare for college applications. So do you have the courses that you need for the area of study that you want to go into next? Are you well prepared? And that has to start as early as seventh or eighth grade.
Mhm.
So, really important that parents are on top of that. So that's an area that I help guide them. And then my second area of discussion and work with families is on how to properly sexually educate their children. And we've talked about this before, Erica, but
Yep.
my firm belief is that we start the day they come out, and we don't stop. And
Yeah.
so I think I'm helping families and guiding families in the proper way to communicate sex education and the values and the morals that they have in their homes.
All right. So let's dig into that. That's the real reason I invited you here. But I do want to touch on it because we're pretty free and breezy in our house. We're very open. There's nothing we won't talk about. Our son knows he can come to us with anything. Nothing's probably going to shock me, and I'll give the best answer I can give. But that doesn't necessarily come easily. And if you yourself weren't raised that way, I know that can be painful, challenging, uncomfortable, all that good
Absolutely.
stuff. So I guess first things first of all, one concern a parent might have is like the age factor, right? Well, I have a
Mhm.
2-year-old or I have a 3-year-old. So what are you saying? What am I supposed to be doing? And won't they get it in school? Why do we have to do it? Or they're nowhere near the age of, sexual activity. So what is there to talk
Mhm.
about? I'm sure these are common, things that you have heard and
Absolutely.
barriers or perceived barriers that parents face. So regarding sex education across the ages, can you speak, this is kind of a loaded question. Can you speak to like why, when, and how parents may start that? So
Yeah,
let's break that
absolutely.
down for you. Like why? Why do we even need to do this and possibly a lot earlier than maybe we thought we needed to?
So I have a course that I teach that starts literally at birth. Like, so my first session is, birth. It's basically infants and toddlers, and then moves on from stage to stage in each session. And so the why for me is, I mean, there are certain elements of life for our entire lives that will always be there. They, whether you want it or not, it's going to be there. Sex is one of them. Sex
Mhm.
is an important part of any functioning adult's life. And so there's no way to escape that. You have to recognize as a parent, yes, you have a baby, but your baby will one day be a sexually active adult, right? And so why do we start as young as we do? Why do we look? Because it's just natural. It's part of our nature. So when I'm talking to parents who have babies, some of the discussion we have is your child is recognizing its body parts. They are not just discovering their nose and their ears and their belly button like you are teaching them, but they're going to discover all of their parts. And so we're setting the tone right from that beginning exploration. If you smack their hand away from those parts, or if you cringe, or you have some type of a visceral reaction to that, you're sending a message that this is not a good thing, that those parts are not good in some way. The baby might not be comprehending exactly why or what's going on exactly, but they're definitely getting a message that this is something bad.
Mhm.
And I personally don't want my children to feel that way. And I would hope that most people wouldn't, because that leads to other problems down the road. We want them to recognize that this is your body, and every part of your body is good and beautiful and wonderful. You should be proud of your body. It's your private body. So if you're teaching them to take control of their own body, then you are also preparing them for safety down the road as well.
Mm.
And, there are so many different topics about safety that we get into once we start talking about, children as they get a little bit older. But the understanding that your body is a good thing, that your body is yours, and that you are in control of your body is something we teach right from day one. And giving them that positive, confident, loving feeling right from the beginning sets them up for success throughout their entire lives.
Wonderful. And you mentioned the I forget if you used the word danger, and if you didn't, maybe that's too excessive. But when you're talking about down the road and safety,
Mm-hmm.
what for the parent who's like, what are you talking about? How do these things tie together? Educating them early, and your body is good and your body is yours. What are we looking to prevent?
Well, we're definitely in a society where we have two working parents in most homes, which means that your child is not with you during the day. So where is your child? Your child is in the care of other people, hopefully trusted people that you feel very confident in and you feel very safe and comfortable with them. But there are bad actors in every environment. And so you are sending your child off and allowing them to be in a different environment for a good portion of the day. And you want to make sure that the confidence, the independence that you have given them right from day one stretches into those environments so that then when something happens that shouldn't happen, that child feels strong and confident enough to stand up for themselves in that moment, or at the very least, come to a trusted adult and share with them that there's a situation that made them uncomfortable or they felt harmed in.
Right.
So
Whereas, let's say they had smacked the hand away and like that was kind of how we handled it. Maybe we didn't know, but that may get added to sort of an icky experience. And then they don't want to tell anybody about it.
that's exactly right, because you've
Mhm.
already set the stage for all of that, all of those experiences being negative and bad in some way. And so when we think of something as being negative, when we think of something as being bad, then we don't want to talk about it. It's something we want to hide or something we want to run away from, and instead of facing it head on. And one of the examples that I give in one of my classes is honestly, I have a grandson who is 3. And what I just adore the fact that his mother and father are teaching him to have that independence and that control over his own body. So even within the family, when he's around us, he has the option. You can go give them a hug, or you can give them a high five, or you can give them a fist bump, or whatever you want. You're not obligated to hug anybody. You're not, that's your body and your choice. And I love that because I think that is teaching him right from day one to be respectful and kind, but also independent and in charge.
Yeah. Beautiful. All right. So let's say someone's mulling this over and they're like, all right, well, my kid's not a baby or a toddler anymore. We've already passed that opportunity. Um, let's go maybe through a couple age groups and just give us a quick example, like to the parent who has no idea how to broach this. Are we waiting until they ask something? Are we looking for an opportunity? Are we purposely, weaving it into our day? Let's say maybe, I don't know, 4 or 5. What's the next age group after preschoolers? Early elementary. What are we saying to these kids, and when do we bring it up, and how?
You know what? I would say you are everything you said, all of the above, all of the above. We are always looking for moments of opportunity. You will be surprised if you really start paying attention and really start thinking about it, how often your children ask you questions or point things out to you that have some sexual connotation to them. And bisexual, I'm not just talking, that, baby making experience. I'm talking about holding hands. I'm talking about kissing. I'm talking about hugging. I'm talking about intimacy of any kind. Questions are going to pop up all the time, especially when they're very young, because they have not learned yet that there are some things that might be more private than others. And so they're an open book. So they're going to ask you all kinds of questions. And I would say my first thing that I say in my class all the time is honesty, 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 honesty. Be the best resource in the room. You don't want your child going outside and getting knowledge from who knows where that may
TikTok.
not be Yeah, exactly. TikTok, right? You don't want them getting knowledge that may or may not actually be accurate. It may also not follow your family's morals and values. So you run that risk if you make yourself a non-valuable resource. So honesty is super, super important. Listen for those moments of opportunity and grab them. Don't run from them. A lot of parents freeze in those moments, right? They like, where do babies come from? Yeah, you got to be ready. Everyone asks, where do babies come from? So you have to be prepared and you have to answer those questions honestly. Fairies bring the baby, the stork brings the baby. Not a good answer. Just not a good answer, because now when they realize that's not true, they're like, boy, are my parents stupid,
Right? They don't even know how this works.
That's
Now,
right.
on the flip side of that, I often hear like only give as much information as is needed to satisfy the actual question that was asked. You don't need to give
Agreed.
like a
Yeah.
dissertation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the cognitive level of the child who's asking. So obviously we're going to give a very different answer to our 10-year-old than our 5-year-old. And I don't want parents to think they have to like literally sit down and explain the whole bird. Like if your kid says, where do babies come from? That's what you're answering. and
Right.
briefly.
Right, exactly. You're absolutely right. And what I found, I had a child who was very, very inquisitive, and I will tell you that at the age of 5, the basic answers were not satisfying him. So I started with, inside the mommy's tummy. They come from inside the mommy's tummy. That is the correct answer. That is not a lie. It is true. How does the baby get into the mommy's tummy? Was the next question I got.
Right.
So
Two different
again,
questions.
two different questions. So my answer was along the lines of when a mommy and daddy love each other very much, they make the baby together, and the baby grows inside the mommy's tummy until it's ready to come out in about 9 months, and then the baby comes out of the mommy's tummy.
Mm-hmm.
But how do the mommy and daddy make the baby? And I had no choice. The questions just kept coming,
Your
and
kiddo
so
needed the full dissertation.
he needed the full dissertation. And when I got to the end of it, again, I did keep it short. I kept it basic. I used real terminology. I didn't make up words. I used real words, the biological terms for all of the body parts. I explained the egg and the sperm, and I explained how everything comes together. And he said, "Oh, okay." And he walked away.
Yeah, I think parents are expecting like this is going to be life changing or traumatic, or it's going to lead to a million more questions. And it can. In your case, it
Mm-hmm.
clearly did. But sometimes
Yeah,
they're just
yeah.
like, cool, what are we having for snack? Right?
Exactly. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. I
Move.
have way more important things to do. I've got to get back to my Mario game, So, yeah. And I felt like, okay, well, now he knows, and now he's educated. And when he wants more information, if he has other questions, then he knows where to come. He knows, a valuable resource that will give him honest answers. And I didn't make faces that indicated that it was wrong for him to be asking me these questions, because these are very normal questions. This is a normal path that children take. They all, it's part of our nature. It's how we were all created. So it's very normal for kids to ask these questions, and they're all going to ask at different ages and different stages, depending on, your family's experience and, and their inquisitive nature.
Mm-hmm.
And
Awesome.
for me, I also, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, go ahead.
In part of your question, you asked me, when would you bring it up? When would you start the conversation? Because we've really just been talking about them coming to us with questions.
Right.
So I would say, again, when you notice moments of opportunity, you're watching a movie together and something's happening in the movie of a sexual nature that's good or bad, either way, you can always pause the movie and say, so I just wanted to chat about this for a quick second, because this is something that makes me happy, or this is something that scares me and makes me nervous, and I want to share with you, this is a good thing, or this is a bad thing. So those are good moments of opportunity. Also, if you hear of anything going on within your community, anything in particular that you get wind of, moms talk. Mom groups are the best. Moms share every little bit of tidbit of information that they can get their hands on. And that's wonderful, and use that information to spark conversations with your children. So I know there was an issue in our school with sexual activity taking place in the middle school bus, in the back of the bus. There was sexual activity going on. And I found out about that, and I sat my kids down and we had a conversation about what was going on, and the inappropriate nature of what was happening at the age they are. And I was very clear to say to them, these are not abnormal behaviors that adults engage in at some point in their life when they are in committed relationships, but it's not normal activity for sixth graders in the back of a bus.
In the back of the bus.
Yeah. So I grabbed that opportunity to really share, that information with them. They were not comfortable with that conversation, at all, but it was necessary.
I can imagine.
Yeah, but it was necessary. I mean, it had to be said. Somebody had to share that with them. And, again, throughout their entire lives, anytime there was a moment where I saw an opportunity to bring something up or share something, I would. And, to this day, I have two 25-year-olds and a 27-year-old, and they all have decided that when it's time for the talk, they're sending their kids to my house. And
what a cop out.
Exactly. And they all know, though, that an open sexual discussion can be had at any time if any of them are interested. They've gotten to a point now where they're like, okay, I think we've had enough of that, and we're going to go have these conversations on our own. Right? But they know that they can come to me if they have a question or they have a need, because I've spent 27 years chatting with them. Yeah. So
awesome. So one more question on that topic, and then I do want to move on to having grown children. You mentioned using the correct names for body parts, providing our kids with the correct names. What can you speak to why that's a recommendation? What is the benefit of using the correct names versus the cute ones that we tend to make up?
Well, I think first of all, it goes to your credibility. I mean, it just makes you sound like you know what you're talking about. And using frou-frou words, I don't think are necessarily as legitimate. And I'm not saying that on a day-to-day basis, when you're talking with your kids in the bathtub or talking with your kids in the shower, that you can't use those terms. That's fine. But when you're having a serious conversation of a sexual nature, I think it's important that they know the real names for those parts. You also don't want to send them off into the world not knowing, right? So they hear the word penis and then they're like, well, what is that? I don't even know what that is, right? Like,
I don't have one of those.
That's right. I have a willy, but so I just think it's important that they're educated. I mean, if you think about it, if they were in a science class or if they were in an English class, you're not making up other words for any of the things you're teaching them there. So it's important that they really be fully educated in the appropriate way.
Awesome. That was very, very helpful. All right, let's shift our conversation a little bit. As I mentioned at the outset, most of us still have young children underfoot. I'm transitioning away from that into the teen years, but you have a unique perspective for our listeners because your children are already grown. As you mentioned, they're 25 and 27. Is that what you said?
Yes, two 25-year-olds and a 27-year-old.
All right. Can you speak a bit about the experience of watching, nurturing your kids transitioning to adulthood? What can we expect? What should we be looking out for? What's amazing about it? What was hard about it? And also, we'll just know there's a light at the end of the tunnel where they aren't quite as needy from moment to moment and day to day.
Right. Yeah. I years and years ago, learned a parenting symbol that really stuck with me throughout the years. And it's funnel parenting. So when you think of a funnel, the shape, being like this, at the bottom of the funnel, it's very tight space. It's all very closed in. that represents you being the parent that makes all the decisions, all the choices. You are in 100% control of that child. When a baby comes out, it's helpless and you're doing everything. So everything that you do is self-driven, and you are in command of what happens next. The funnel represents the fact that as they get older, you're losing more and more of that control, and they are gaining more and more control. And it's hard for us to think sometimes that, what do you mean? Like, my 3-year-old doesn't have any control? Well, your 3-year-old does. They have free will. So your
The parent
3-year-old.
that says that has not tried potty training yet.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, they are in control of the potty training situation, which makes it so hard for us, right? And then they go to preschool and they're making a choice. They're making a choice whether they're going to follow the directions in class, whether they're going to bite the person sitting next to them, whether they're going to, engage fully in that class or not. They are making a lot of conscious decisions that you might not even really recognize that a 3-year-old would be making. And as they get older, they're making more and more decisions, and they're taking more and more control. So the top of the funnel being the place where, it's all open and your child is now making all of their own decisions. And that happens at different ages, different stages, depending on the family makeup and depending on, whether they go to college or they don't go to college. And, so there's a lot of factors that play into that. I will tell you, as a parent, again, of grown adults, I think that if you have made yourself a valuable resource to them throughout their childhood, they never stop needing you. They come back because they have seen you as that valuable resource. And so they think, well, mom will know the answer to that. Dad will know the answer to that. Everything they're experiencing in life is new. So even once they are fully grown into adults, you've got what, 20, 30, 40 years on them, right? Of experience, of life experience. So the first time they buy a car, the first time they buy a house, getting married, having children, all of those experiences are brand new. And you have that experience and you have that knowledge. We have to remember to take a step back and not try to force our decisions on them, let them make their own decisions in all those cases. But guidance is often very helpful in making wise decisions. So again, I think that this is why it's critical that we make ourselves really valuable resources when they're young, so that they feel comfortable still using us as a resource as they get older. For me, the joy part of having them be older is having that adult to adult relationship. I mean, it's really fun. I mean, we went axe throwing recently to celebrate a birthday together and shared a couple of beers. And, we enjoy our vacations, adult to adult. We're always planning all these activities. You no longer have to go sit through a movie that you're sitting through just because your child wants to see it. You're actually choosing movies that you might all like. There's just a lot of, adult to adult experience that's really fun. It's really, really fun. I'm loving it.
That's wonderful to hear. And I would imagine that the being okay as the parent with the top of the funnel and losing all of that control, and then also from the child side of it, or our kids side of it, for them to be able to take that on, we kind of need to be working on it now, because we don't want it to be such an abrupt shift. Like,
totally agree.
It wouldn't be helpful to helicopter and then they're on their own, right?
No, I think in all honesty, that is a setup for failure. I mean, when you think about it, I remember when my kids went away to college, I started panicking. Did I teach them to cook enough? Did I teach them to do laundry enough? Did I give them those tools that they needed? And I think they felt prepared. And then what I, had to learn was that the things that they might not have been prepared for, they'll learn. They'll figure it out. They'll figure out. They'll shrink that favorite shirt that they had, and then they'll learn not to wash things that way again, right?
Right.
Live and learn. So,
Yeah.
so we have to let go, and we have to let them, make those mistakes and make good decisions, make bad decisions, and learn from all of those experiences. And sometimes that's super hard, but it is what's necessary. And you're right, going from a helicopter parent when, a 3-year-old, and then being a helicopter parent all the way through, and then expecting that your 18-year-old is going to launch successfully, that's just not going to happen.
Right. Right.
And another thing somebody pointed out to me, which I think is really true, it's if you don't ever let them have that control and make those decisions on their own, they don't have the opportunity to make bad decisions, make mistakes with you there to help them get out of it, right? Then if you wait until they're gone, then it's too late. So when they make bad decisions and they're in your home and you're able to sit them down and say, so this was a bad decision, and let's talk about it, and let's talk about how you could have done this differently the next time, and yada yada, then they've learned, they've grown,
And they'll remember it so much more because they learned it that way. Whereas we could have easily said, no, don't do it that way. Here's another way to do it. But the long-term payoff is not going to be the same. And it's obviously easier said than it is done. I'm reading a book right now. I believe it's called What Do You Say? And it's about the language that you use with your kids. And they talk a lot about being a parent as a consultant. So taking the time to step back and pause and say things like, well, how do you think you could go about solving this? And, I have some ideas, let me know if you want to hear them, which for me is incredibly difficult. It's taken a lot of time and mental energy. It's like a little painful for me, but I can see the results of it in terms of the dynamic we have together, because it's a lot less pushy and directive and all of those things. And then just in like next time there's a situation, maybe he's thinking for himself. So I love that idea of
that's
trying
fantastic.
to remind myself to be more of a
I still have to remind myself. And actually, to be very honest, my children remind me.
Right.
If we want your opinion, we will ask. Thank you very much, but we will ask you if we want your opinion. And I've had to take a step back a couple of times and say, yep, that's right. That's the right thing to do.
Right. It's funny. It's like you're conflicting, like, oh, I did raise them to be independent and speak up, and now they're using it against me.
Right. Exactly. You're absolutely right.
That's awesome. So for those of us still navigating daily life with young children, and I say that like I have one, but I feel like I'm a little bit out of the woods, but a lot of our listeners have multiple very young children.
Right.
And maybe don't see that joyous, adult to adult, have some beers together light at the end of the tunnel. Like, this might be a silly question, but like, and I'm sure it's super specific to each individual, but for you, Lisa, what does your life look like now that your children are grown? Like, what does a day look like? What are you doing?
Isn't that so funny? Because when you're a mom and a dad and you're knee deep in it, I mean, my gosh, every weekend I was at a basketball tournament or a soccer tournament. My life literally was just all about every child event that I had to get them to or be at with them. And I remember when, again, mine are very close in age. So when they all went off, to college, I just remember thinking, I can do whatever I want. I don't have to be anywhere I don't want to be. I can be wherever I want right now. And I don't mean that to sound like I didn't love the soccer tournaments or the basketball tournaments or the track meets or whatever I was at. I loved watching my children thrive. I loved so being right there on the sidelines, supporting them all the way. It was really fun. I loved it. But I loved regaining my own personal life back. So I think I got back into hobbies that I hadn't done in a long time that I had left behind. So that was really fun. Developing and really expanding on my friendships. I think my friendships really revolved a lot around my children. I spent so much time, and I'm sure all of your listeners do the same thing, with the parents of the kids that your kids are in school with, or live in your neighborhood or whatever. And I got to kind of like go outside that box and make friends in other areas as well, which is really nice. Travel, of course, is really nice. You don't have to worry about getting a sitter. And for many of us, I mean, getting somebody to watch your kids is half the battle. And then the other half the battle is actually enjoying yourself while you're away, because you're, so worried about whether they're okay left back at home, right?
And
And
any night out
so
doubles in cost if you have to pay a sitter.
that's exactly right. That's exactly right. So I'm really enjoying the fact that I can just, pack a bag and go away for the weekend. And I don't have to worry. And you're right, that cost isn't there. And it's just really nice.
And you have a
So
lot of
that for
time
me,
ahead of
that's,
you to enjoy all that. Like, I think we just get in this mindset of like, it's so all encompassing, and we do so much that maybe we have to do, but wouldn't prefer to do, or prefer to do in that moment. And so little time for ourselves, and so little energy for ourselves. That it's nice to hear that, even though maybe it's a little sad on some level for our kids to grow up, there's also something awesome, at the end of that, having this, more of a peer relationship with them that we really enjoy, and doing things we both enjoy. And yeah, getting a lot of that time back, and
yeah.
rediscovering like who you
And
are and what you love to do.
So true, so true. And I have to tell you, as much as I'm loving it, as much as I'm enjoying it, I'm far out from the separation anxiety that I felt when they turned 18 and they all went away to college. I mean, I cried as I dropped each one of them off. So I knew they had to spread their wings. I knew they had to go to college. I knew they had to have these experiences. I was very happy and very excited for them. I was excited for myself too, as you just said, to regain that freedom. But it was a challenge. I cried, when they left, and then they would come home for breaks. And when they went back after breaks, I would cry a little bit. Just, their presence is so much a part of us. And so, when they're gone, you feel the emptiness. So it's normal to feel that way. You just have to push your way through it. And as you said, look at all the positives that are going to be in it for you, and all the really joyful experiences you're going to have once they aren't in your house every day.
Yeah. And I don't like to tell parents, savor every moment, because it's a blink of an eye. And I think that's just unrealistic. We're allowed to not love most of the moments. If we don't, we don't. But it is, both sides of that coin are true. It does not last forever. I know I have friends that are like, I wish my kids were home more. They don't want anything to do with me. And it feels too soon for that. But they're super independent.
Well,
They
I
move
will
on to
tell you
their own
this. I'll
thing.
tell you another thing. There is a period of time, they the teen years, where you are a humiliating person, no matter who you are or what you do.
Just by
Right?
breathing air. Yes.
That's right. So there's that period of time where they just really need to push away from you and, do their own thing. But they all come back.
Yeah.
They all come back. Again, if you have made yourself that valuable person in their life, that valuable resource. So that's why I think it's really important that you really try to, from day one, really establish that connectivity, because then they will come back, because they will recognize it. And all my kids, when they went away to college and they came back with revelations, I never realized how clean our house was until I moved in with this roommate who is a complete slob, and I hate it. And now I thank you for keeping such a beautifully clean home. And I was like, nobody
Oh
thanked
my
me for 18
goodness.
years. Nobody thanked me.
You felt like you were getting just an Academy Award.
Exactly. I would like to thank
Right?
Mr. Clean. And
That is amazing. Yeah, right
yeah,
now
it
it's
was
like,
great.
where did you put this, and where's my that, and why did you move?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that would be. Ooh, I hope I get that response somewhere in the future. That's awesome. It's really nice for you to be able to kind of take that bird's eye view that a lot of us cannot take about, the parenting career, and kind of shed some light on what's coming and what's good about it and what's hard about it. I love that. So I want to let you go soon, But one more question, if you can
Mhm.
stand me,
Of
what is
course.
one thing, and this is for you wearing your parent hat, not your professional hat. What's one thing you've learned on your own parenting journey? Hopefully something we haven't touched on yet, or maybe something you want to just reemphasize that you wish you had come to sooner and you would like our listeners to know now.
I think there are 2 things actually.
That's so funny.
I'm
Everyone
so
I've done
sorry.
this. No, everyone has given two things so far.
Oh,
I
that's
think I need
funny.
to change the question to two things.
There you go. The first one is I think that teaching boundaries is really, really important. As I gave my example earlier with my grandson, I think they're doing a fantastic job of that. And I think I think I did do that, but I think I maybe brought it to the table later than I wish I had. Um, Understanding boundaries in your own life, in your friendships, in your work environment, with your family, I think is really critical to healthy development.
Mhm.
And it also helps you understand the boundaries of others.
Mm,
And so I think boundaries are really a really, really important thing to understand. And so teaching that from a very early age, I think is critical. And I think that it helps you to use no, and it helps you to accept no more
mhm,
frequently in your life. So I think that's really critical. And I think the second thing that I is really really important is listening. And I know we say that a lot in a lot of different elements in our life, a lot of different places in our life, but we are so caught up when we are young mothers in the day to day. The house has to be clean, the laundry has to be done, the groceries have to be purchased, I have to make this dinner, and I have to make that lunch, and I have to go to that soccer game. And it is a whirlwind. And a lot of times our kids are talking and we're like, blah, yeah, 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 yeah. Like, wait until I finish this, or wait until I finish that, or whatever. And I think it's really important that we soak in everything they're saying to us. Again, I think it helps establish that connectivity that lasts a lifetime. And if
mhm,
you are truly listening to what your child is telling you and responding in an appropriate manner to whatever it is they're sharing, they value you so much more, and they recognize that you value them.
mm.
And I think that's so, so important to a mutually satisfying relationship and to an overall healthy, mentally, emotionally healthy child that you're raising.
I think that's awesome. And I don't think you're suggesting you necessarily have to drop everything. I've been known to say to my son, like, I really want to listen to what you're telling me. I need to
Mm-hmm.
finish this, whatever, this email I'm typing, or it's not going to get sent, and I can't do two things at once. But
Agreed. And
I'm not putting him off. I then come
right.
like, okay, now you have my
No,
attention.
and you know what? In all
Because
honesty,
that's a
in that
boundary
situation,
too, right?
that's right. You're teaching him patience. You're teaching him you're important, but sometimes something else has to come first. And I just need you to be patient. And then I'm going to get back to the important nature of your question or your conversation. So yeah, I agree with you completely. If you are somebody who can cook dinner and have a conversation with your child at the same time, great, good for you. Do it. Absolutely. If you really are cooking this new recipe and you need to pay very close attention, it's okay to say, I'm right in the middle of making dinner and I just need to concentrate. Otherwise it's going to stink. So, give me a second here. And then I promise you we'll get back to that because I really want to hear what you have to say. I think that's a very, very valid
Yeah.
experience.
And I listen better when I focus. I
Mm-hmm.
have found, and I'm sure you had three different types of kids, so you've probably seen this too. My teenager, it's so much better if we're not like this in the car, especially when I was in the front seat and he was in the back seat, which is not the case anymore. We have like one of those swing chairs on our front porch, or we'll walk around the block. The stuff that he's willing to say and tell me and talk about, the detail that he'll share, whereas ordinarily it would be like, fine, my day was fine because I'm
Mm-hmm. Right.
looking right at him. Um, so for parents who maybe they aren't able to have, they're like, what do I listen? My kid's not telling me anything. How do I listen to them? Maybe mix it up, try it a different
different
way.
ways. One of the things that worked really well for me, as weird as it might sound, is Starbucks. I had Starbucks dates with my kids. Who doesn't love a good Starbucks?
Love.
I mean, they wanted like, a Frappuccino or a
Yep.
cake pop or whatever, and I would say, let's go to Starbucks. And they'd be like, okay. And they
Awesome.
didn't know I was sort of tricking them, because we would sit down at Starbucks and we would talk. And I didn't have an agenda. There was
Right.
no, nothing that I needed to. I just wanted to hear what they had to say. I just wanted to hear what
Right.
what they might want to talk about. And it worked every time.
And I imagine it was appreciated because there were three of them and they were very close in age. So that was like they got you, all of you. Didn't have to
Yep,
share.
that's right.
Super, super special. Awesome. And back to the boundaries as an adult who has spent a fortune on therapy with the focus of many, many focuses, but one of them being setting boundaries, holding
Right,
boundaries, even just giving myself permission to have boundaries.
right.
Now that's not the case for everyone. That's often a trauma response, but yeah, just what a beautiful gift it would be. And
I
for
agree.
them to understand, like, it doesn't mean anything about you. If I can't focus on you right now, it's not because you're not worthy of my focus. It's because I just can't do two things and I'm busy right now, right? There's so much
Right.
that can be misconstrued about boundaries. But yeah, I think that's
Absolutely. Absolutely.
a really good
And
point, a really good way to
yeah,
teach that. Yeah.
there's a really good book out there. It's called Boundaries.
Okay. That's easy to
That's
remember.
the title. Yes. And it's written by Dr. Cloud.
Okay.
And it is a fantastic book. Each chapter discusses boundaries in a different realm of your life. And what I loved about it was, I would read a chapter and I'd be like, oh yeah, I do all those things. Like, that's great. Like, I've got boundaries in that part of my life, and that makes me feel really good. And then I'd get to the next chapter and I'd go, oh my gosh, I
Oops.
don't do any of these things. Why? How is it that I can have boundaries in this part of my life and not in
Right?
this part of my life? So, then it was
Interesting.
training me how to create them in the areas that I was not. And
Yeah.
it was a life-changing book for me. Really, it really was. It was
Oh,
really,
I'm gonna
really
check that
beneficial.
out.
And
Books
and
are
it helps
cheaper
you.
than therapy.
Yeah, see, there you go. That's right. And what I found was that once I read that book and I had a better understanding, I was better set up to, you know,
To teach
present
it
them
to
to my
them.
children and
Yeah.
and make sure that they understood what they were.
That makes so much sense. Those were two excellent tips. We have not had those yet. I'm so appreciative of that. Lisa, thank you so
My
much for
pleasure.
joining me. I will be back soon with more stuff that I wish I knew sooner. In the meantime, I will leave you with my list of stuff that I have learned the hardest way. It could be much longer, but I'm keeping it to four things. Number one, accept help when it is offered. Two, ask for it when it isn't. Three, you are the expert on your child. Trust your gut. And finally, four, if you need to be the squeaky wheel. Thank you, everyone. I'll be back soon.